And now, you're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
This is your RBLR Rays podcast. I'm your host, Zach Dobb, along with my co-host, Pat Davenport. Pat, how's it going? Baseball is happening.
Baseball is happening. The grapefruits, cactuses,
yes.
The two fruits that matter right now. Is cactus a fruit? I need more. You can get cactus fruit.
Is there a seed? Does
they
cactus
yield
have
fruit,
seeds?
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think cactus yield fruit. We're gonna go with that. Yeah.
So it's a good time to be watching fruity baseball right now.
It is.
And I mean, results are not great. I don't think we're high in the Grapefruit League standings, but I mean, I'll let you be the judge of if that matters. We'll probably talk about that a little bit later, in fact. So hold your Grapefruit League opinions, and we'll get to them in just a moment.
We will, and we will get to them because we've got a super fun show this week. We are the Rays are playing baseball. The Rays are playing baseball. It's great stuff. But before we talk about the new Rays baseball, we're going to talk about some old stuff, but some good stuff. The Rays won their 2000th game last season, and before we completely, turn the page on 2023 and the past and go into the future, we're gonna take a look back and look at some of the best wins of those 2000. And be thinking about what your favorite of those 2000 wins are, and maybe it will come up. And if it doesn't, you should tell us about it. We're also, of course, going to talk about what the Rays have done so far this season in spring training, updates on some of the battles we've been looking at, some of the storylines, and just our general thoughts, because it's always great when there's baseball being played. And if you're watching us on YouTube, do us a favor, hit subscribe, hit the like button while you're down there. It helps us out a lot and lets us know that you like this show and you like us. If you're on Spotify, follow us, drop a rating, and wherever you're watching from, just share us around. We're always glad to have you, and we'd love for more people to be following us, because we're going into a great season of Rays baseball, and we want as many people around for the ride as possible. But before we completely turn that page and we move into the future, we'd like to talk a little bit about the past, because the Rays won their 2000th game last year, and that is not a small feat. The Rays it seemed earlier in the Rays' franchise's history like it may take some time for us to get to the 2000s one. There's some rough times at the beginning of the franchise, but we're now in, like, I don't know if you consider this the golden age, or maybe the silver age of the Rays that we're in right now, but it's a really cool time to be a Rays fan. And so we thought it'd be fun to talk about some of the success from this current run and from previous runs, and just some of the coolest wins in Rays history.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have the two kind of main competitive windows of the Rays where most of the fun happened. It was like that 2008 to 2013 window, which some would consider the golden age. I would say this current window that we're in, that started in like 2018, 2019 time, is even better. And I think it will be remembered more fondly in history. The Kevin Cash era will be remembered more fondly than the Joe Madden era. In fact, this season, this upcoming season, I think Kevin Cash is going to overtake Joe Madden's win total.
It looks that way,
he needs to win, I think, like 20 games to overtake his total. So if we don't win 20 games next year, this podcast will be an entertaining watch, I feel, because we'll be panicking and throwing stuff all over the place, going, why aren't we winning any games? We go 20 and 142.
Let's not even put that into the universe. We're gonna be successful. We're just gonna put that success into the universe. But as we're looking back at some of the success that the Rays have had, we're gonna give you 10 of our favorite wins from those 2000. And Pat, I'm gonna let you start it off. What is your first favorite? By the way, these are in no particular order. We're not trying to give you the 10 greatest wins ever, like ranking them. If you wanted, you could just go to Baseball Reference and click championship, the championship leverage index statistic, and just find the ones with the highest numbers. And some of those are on there. And I guess you could do that if you wanted, but we're here to talk about our favorites and the ones that give us the most joy, but some of the most memorable ones are definitely going to be in there. So Pat, I'm gonna let you start it off. What's your first?
Okay, so I want to start with, which one shall I open with? I will open with one of my personal favorites. I don't know if this is I don't think it's a deep cut, but it's probably not one that immediately comes to mind. And that is opening day 2012. That is the Rays' 1014th win in their franchise history. and it essentially was a. Hold on, let me get this correct. It is. Where did I put it? I've lost the box score. Here we go. It is a 7-6 win over the New York Yankees, going 1-0 onto the season. This had loads of fun things happen in it. First of all, the main story of this game was that after signing with the Cubs as a free agent in the 2010 to 2011 offseason, Carlos Pena disappeared for a bit. And then for the 2012 season, he signed back on with the Rays, making a grand return. The legendary first baseman, now MLB Network analyst, went placata and hit a grand slam of CC Sabathia in the very first inning with a legendary call from Dwayne Stats going, "Welcome back, Carlos Pena." And the Trop was rocking. It was a sold-out Tropicana Field. It was insanely. I was in my living room in my hometown in the UK going, yeah. And then the Yankees would then actually make a comeback. Raul Ibanez had a good game. A-Rod had a good game in that one. So there was lots of stuff happening. James Shields was getting shelled on the opening day start. He gave up 6 runs in 5 innings. So it was not good. And the Yankees actually had a 6-5 lead going into the 9th inning. And that is when it all turned around. And Carlos Pena would once again come up big with a deep fly ball to center field that would fall for a walk-off single, giving the Rays a win over the Yankees, which is always euphoric. Carlos Pena was the hero of the day, and a walk-off on opening day. Desmond Jennings also made a diving catch in the outfield, I think on the very first ball in play of the year. So
that's so fun.
Yeah. It was a line drive to center field off the bat of Derek Jeter, and Jennings dove and caught it to start the season. And then we had a walk-off. So it was a pretty electric game.
Yeah.
We didn't end up making the playoffs in 2012, but it was still a really fun ride. And it was just the perfect opening day for me.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know what more you could want from an opening day. You've got all the drama, you've got home runs, you've got diving catches, and you've got a lot of names too. Like when you look, I think if you were to look back and watch this game, you would be shocked by how many names that you know right now were on the roster in that game. Just so much star power that, like, even if it's not like MLB star power, it's Rays star power. And then you've got some of the MLB star power on the Yankee side with Jeter and Sabathia, etc. Even though we hate them, that's a marquee kind of game. And it's just, the relationship between the Rays and the Yankees is going to be a consistent theme as we go through some of these ones. I'll just give you a little hint. There's a couple more Rays-Yankees matchups as we go along here because we hate them and we love when we beat them. But it seems like whenever those two teams get together, no matter when it is in the season, fireworks are going to happen. It's going to be a fun game. And what better way to start out a season than to put two teams that are going to create fireworks in the same arena? I think the Yankees and Rays should just play every opening day because that would be wildly entertaining every single time. I don't know like what the actual like modus operandi for choosing who plays an opening day is, but if you put Rays, Yankees every single opening day, it would be box office, no doubt.
Right. My hot take is that the Nordies, sure, Red Sox Yankees was the rivalry. Nowadays, the rivalry is Rays Yankees. That's the rivalry. Also, I forgot to mention, Carlos Pena hit the walk-off off Mariano Rivera.
Wow.
He gave up 3 hits beautiful. And 2 walks in a third of an inning. He blew up.
So beautiful. You love it. There's just so many things to love. There's so many things to love in just one small package of a 3-ish hour package. There's just so much to love there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you want to remember some guys, I mean, Burke Badenhop pitched out of the bullpen. If you remember Burke
Badenhop.
JP Howell was there. Jake McGee was there.
Yeah.
Elliot Johnson, my favorite Immaculate Grid answer.
Johnson. There you go.
If you guys play Immaculate Grid, Elliot Johnson's such a good one. I actually answered him today.
Yeah.
He played left field for the Rays for 1 game. It was a 0.5% answer.
There you go. I need to play more Immaculate Grid. There was one a couple days ago that I was so mad when I got to I can't remember what it was for, but there's one where Will Myers was an answer, and I'm like, oh, So disappointing.
You need to know him. You need to know
I
Will
know.
Myers. What kind of
I know.
Rays fan are you?
I felt weak in that moment that I could not come up with Will Myers on the spot. I really did.
All right, I'm going to throw it over to you now. Opening day 2012 is in our 10 favorite wins of all time. What is your first pick?
So my first pick is also not like I don't know if it's a deep cut as well. I think Rays fans will probably remember this one. This one was Rays win number 1,646 was the number one, and that was the Travis d'Arnaud 3-home run game versus the Yankees. This was in 2019. This game is one of my favorites because I remember where I was the entire game. I was actually at work for almost this entire game. And I wasn't supposed to be, but I would be periodically checking my phone. For context, I was working at a big box store at the time. So I was on the sales floor the entire time, and I'd be periodically checking my phone. And I was a closer. So like as the game was going on and on, I keep checking my phone and we would be down again. And I would keep checking and the score would go up and I'd be like, wait, did Travis d'Arnaud hit another one and another one? I mean, I lost my mind in the store. Like I had some customers looking at me because I think the third one that he hit, I could not contain myself anymore. I audibly celebrated in the middle of the store during working hours. It was worth it for every single second. I mean, I love beating the Yankees like as much as literally anything, but there was that is a very specific memory for me because I was a huge Travis d'Arnaud fan that 2019 season. I was on the Daddy d'Arnaud train 100%. It is one of my fondest memories is being on that train. I don't know if anyone remembers that nickname but me. But that team was a fun team too. You had some Rays legends like Mike Brasso was on that team in this game. Guillermo Heredia was in right field for this game. Yeah. Joey Wendell, Willie Adames, Avisail Garcia. Love me some Avisail Garcia. Oliver Drake closed it out. Oh, Blake Snell was the starter. Emilio Pagan was in there. Kittredge was in there. I mean, there's some great beginning of the current dynasty Rays names in there. And I mean, and this was a Yankees team, by the way, that had this was when Luke Voigt was with the Yankees. So they had Edwin Encarnacion, which is I mean, that's an immaculate grid name that Edwin Encarnacion played for the Yankees. I always forget that.
Yeah.
Judge was there. James Paxton started. Chapman closed it out or attempted to close it out. And one of the home runs was hit off of him, which is always fun. We love that. It's just one of those games that it just shows again how fun that rivalry is between the Rays and the Yankees and how we've had so many players that I don't know that the greater will remember them too well. d'Arnaud is still around and he's playing with the I think is he still with the Braves? I think he is.
So, yeah.
So, and he's still around, but there's so many of these guys that have come in and just been, the Rays have gotten the best out of them. So many individual guys that you like a guy like Avisail Garcia, was a huge part of some Rays wins. Really fun guy. And you've got all these guys that have come in and that they may not be Hall of Famers. They may not even be Hall of Very Good, but they provided so many cool moments. And there's so many players like that. Travis d'Arnaud is just one for me that really sticks out, but that always sticks on my mind as one of my favorite Rays wins.
Yeah, I love that. That 2019, I think, goes overlooked by some Rays fans and just general MLB. We took the 2019 Super Team Astros to the absolute limit. We almost had them. We were a Garrett Cole away, basically. If Garrett Cole wasn't playing out of his mind, we could have had the Astros that day.
He was so good that day. I made me so mad. He was on a different level that day. I remember it. Ugh.
But that 2019 team was special. I think it could have gone to the World Series if it could get to Garrett Cole for 1 or 2 extra runs.
Yep.
But alas, I digress. That's a great pick. That Lil D, some people call him. Not as fun of a nickname.
Lil D, Daddy d'Arnaud, one of my favorite Rays of all time. All right, what's your second win to contribute to our 10 favorite wins of all time?
Okay, so I'm going from opening day to opener day. That is win number 1,522. It took place on May 19th, 2018, and is where the Rays beat the Los Angeles Angels 5-3. And the reason that this is a significant game is that it changed baseball as we know it. It is a landmark day for baseball. And if you just heard what I just said, a random game in mid-May that took the Rays to 22-22 on the season, like, who cares? Let me tell you, something very particular happened that day. And it all comes down to the starting pitcher for that game was none other than Sergio Romo. Sergio Romo at the time was considered a back-end reliever by the Rays and by everyone in baseball. He was a closer on the Giants, I think, most famously, and had been kind of a high-leverage guy for the Rays. And he started against the Angels that day. And he was the, I think, first ever official, as coined, opener. On purpose opener. Like, there has been times in the past where a starter has not gone many innings, like only went an inning, either because they were getting shelled or got hurt. But this was by design. Romo was like, I'm going to pitch the first inning, then we're going to hand over to what we call a bulk inning guy. And that was Ryan Yarbrough, who went 6 1/3, gave up just 1 run. And Kevin Cash explained at the time that, hey, the Angels had a really good first 3 hitters in their lineup that were all right-handed: Zach Cozart, Mike Trout, and Justin Upton. Okay, and if you get through those 3 guys, you've got Albert Pujols as well. So why don't we get not the soft-throwing lefty? Why doesn't he not start there? And why don't we get a guy that's really tough on right-handers, Sergio Romo, to do that first, and then let Ryan Yarbrough, a guy who was in his rookie season at the time, get to face slightly easier matchups so he can warm into the game easier. And Sergio Romo struck out the side in the first inning. And then Ryan Yarbrough went and pitched really, really well. Ryan Stanek almost cost us the game, pitching in the 8th and 9th. He gave up a couple of runs, and the Angels got all of their runs right at the end of the game, but Alex Colomé got the save. Ryan Stanek would then become the signature opener that year. And so much so that they made a bottle opener about him at a giveaway one time. So yeah, I think everyone got really mad about it at the time. Like, the traditional baseball all heads got really mad about it at the time, and the Rays just kept doing it, and it kept working for them. And it's still a thing that teams around the league now use every now and then. And it's not the A plan, and it wasn't the A plan for the Rays even when they did it. But if you've got a pitcher that you're concerned about settling into the game, that you don't want to face the top of a dangerous lineup, it always helps to bring in a good reliever to do that first. Because it doesn't matter the order that you use your pitchers in, as long as you get the outs. So, yeah, people got mad because it changed how baseball worked. But a revolutionary day for baseball. And I think it's maybe the most Rays win of all time. So I had to be on my list.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about what the Rays are, if you just ask a casual MLB fan what the Rays are, the opener is something they would probably think of if they're trying to talk about what the Rays are and like what they think of when they think of the Rays. It's the ingenuity. It's the ability to come to a game and look at a problem. I'm set up to pitch Ryan Yarbrough against 3 righties, one of whom may be the righty in baseball at the time. Like, this is not a good plan here for me. And to look for a solution to that problem that is outside the box, and to not be afraid of what some people may say or what the old heads might think or what the other baseball media or the other team, how they might feel about it. And to just say, we're going to do what we think is best to win the game, and go out and just do it and to execute and to have the buy-in from your team. And that's, I think, the underrated part of the whole opener thing for the Rays. It would have been super easy for guys, because like when you look at the statistics that get relievers money, it's things like holds, saves, that kind of thing. You're not going to get that if you come in the first inning of a game. But the value that those guys provided was really, really high. And all those guys bought in, especially Ryan Stanek. He was phenomenal in that opener role, because he could bring power, velocity, where a lot of times we would then go to a soft tosser, like a Chirinos, like a Yarbrough, go to somebody else after him. And to have the ability to do that was really, really cool, and gave a lot of dynamic, dynamism. I'm trying to think of the word, dynamism to the Rays rotation that you wouldn't get if you just had sort of the soft tossers that we had at the time to go out there every couple days. And that those guys bought in, like Ryan Stanek, like Sergio Romo, a seasoned closer, a guy that could have easily been like, no, I'm not doing that. I am who I am. I'm a legendary closer. No way I'm doing that. They all bought in, they agreed to do it, and they did it really, really well at the highest level. And it's what has built some of the legend of the Rays and of Kevin Cash. And that's a great win to bring out because it just shows the kind of ingenuity the Rays have always had.
Absolutely. And, there's some great names here too. Daniel Robertson was the kind of offensive key to the victory. He played shortstop that day and hit a grand slam. And then Wilson Ramos drove in the 5th run. He has a couple of fun names that were also on that team. Rob Refsnyder was on the team. Johnny Field was also playing right that day.
Okay.
Yeah, if you remember Johnny Field, Matt Duffy, Christian Arroyo was there as well.
Matt Duffy, yeah.
Yeah, Chaz Rowe pitched a couple of outs. So yeah, it's a good one. The 2018 team showed what was to come in this current Rays window. It wasn't quite there yet. They were still putting together some pieces. But the 2018 trade deadline is kind of, I think, what really started to assemble that core.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's kind of my thoughts on that game. Do you want to throw it over to your next one?
Yeah, and I do, and I actually kind of want to piggyback off of talking about like what the Rays have done to be successful, and piggyback to another game, win number 1,591, and that was the debut of Charlie Morton. And the reason why I think this game is so important is because it was the beginning of the current era of success the Rays have been in that 2019. I think I agree with you because we mentioned this earlier, how underrated that 2019 team was. That was a good baseball team. And one of the reasons it was such a good baseball team was Charlie Morton. He came in and brought stability to a staff a very young staff that needed it, and brought that stability, brought that, the veteran presence to that staff that needed it, and was a huge part of the success of that team. And it was a big deal when they got him in the offseason. I remember where I was actually overseas, and I was like, who is this Charlie Morton guy? Because I didn't know the name off the top of my head. I was like, who is this guy? Like, and looked into him more, and just was real. And it kind of was the first moment in my brain where I was like, oh, maybe we're really going to go for it this year. Maybe this team's going to be something this year, because we've got other pieces, and now went out, got this guy who maybe could be part of the success of the future. And Charlie Morton came in and was phenomenal for the Rays. And, it's a guy that I think doesn't get enough credit for being a part of what the Rays have built, because he was kind of around for the beginning of the success. He was only around in 2019 and 2020. So we kind of forget a little bit about him, especially over the last 3 years, as we've had some other big name pitchers kind of come and be a really big part of it. But he was even though he wasn't that good in 2020, he was still there as a stabilizing force. He was 3rd in the Cy Young voting that 2019 season. Like, that's a big deal. He pitched almost 200 innings. Like, he also led all of baseball in the fewest home runs per 9 that season. So he was really, really good. One fun thing about that game, he started against his previous team, the Houston Astros, was the team that he was starting against, which I think is fun, and got the win. And again, this was a really, really good Astros team as well. Like, this is George Springer, Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, Michael Brantley, Yuri Gurriel. That's just the first 5 guys. So he went out there, got a win, and kind of started off this run of success. Also, since we're just going to talk about some of the fun names that are in some of these lineups, Austin Meadows was in this lineup. Tommy Pham, love some Tommy Pham. G-Man Choi, Avisail Garcia again, Mike Zunino. I love Daniel Robinson's personal favorite of mine. Adam Kolarek pitched a couple innings. Remember Adam Kolarek? That guy.
Ultimate loogie.
Yep, he was out there. He pitched like a third of an inning. He was out there. Jose Alvarado got the save that day. Garrett Cole is the person that we beat that day, by the way, which is fun. Love that. Although only 1 run was earned, but who cares, because we still scored them. Just a really fun game, and also kind of the beginning of, some of this run of success that we've been on. And I just wanted to highlight Charlie Morton as a guy that I think doesn't get enough credit for being a part of the success the Rays have had.
Yeah, Charlie Morton was a definition of a stopper. He was so good at just coming in, and whenever you were like feeling a little bit low, you were like, "Hold on, Uncle Charlie and his Uncle Charlie were on the mound," and
Yep.
he would always put a stop to things if things were a bit shaky.
Yep.
And that 2019 team we've been going to the playoffs ever since.
Yep.
Basically, we never looked back since that team took off, and the window seems to not be closing anytime soon. So
No.
shout out to Morton. He said he wanted to retire with the Rays. He was a stinking liar because he's still pitching now.
Yeah.
He went to go pitch like 3 more years with the Braves. But
Yeah.
I digress. Uncle Charlie will always have a place in my heart for what he did for the org. Okay, I'm going to throw it back a bit further now. I'm going to go back to win number 737, which was a 7-2 win over the Minnesota Twins on September 20th, 2008. And the reason that game is important is because it was the win that gave the Rays enough to clinch their first ever AL East division. And that was their first playoff run. They went from being the laughingstock of the league as the Devil Rays, and then in 08 they rebranded to just the Rays, and suddenly they went crazy, won 97 wins. They were amazingly good. And they went all the way to the World Series that year before falling a little short, but they were a really special team that opened the door to a contention window that lasted a good few years there too, off the back of the emergence of the likes of Carl Crawford, off the likes of Evan Longoria, Carlos Pena, but there was also some cult heroes in that lineup as well. Akinori Iwamura, of course, who could forget Aki? Jason Bartlett was there. Cliff Floyd hit a 2-run home run.
Cliff Floyd.
In that game, Rocco Baldelli pinch hit in that game. Grant Balfour pitched an inning. Troy Percival, the now pitching coach of the Angels, was there. He pitched for the Rays that day, and a bunch of future Rays were on the Twins that day as well. Rays legend and now Bally Sports analyst Denard Span was on the Twins that day. So was Delman Young. He was on the Twins that day.
Young.
And so was Carlos Gomez that played for the Rays for a little bit.
Yeah,
as well.
Carlos Gomez. I remember Carlos Gomez. He was fun.
Yeah, he was a spark plug guy for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think this was just, the moment where the Rays became a legitimate force in baseball. And they have been kind of, except 2015 and 16, they pretty much have been a consistent force in baseball ever since that day. I mean, the whole 08 season, but that was the day that we're like, we are here. We have won the AL East in the same division as the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Blue Jays. We have done it. We are the best team of the bunch, and we're here to stay. And they went all the way to the World Series. So, just a huge day for the Rays to clinch their first division. And hopefully one day we'll be talking about their first World Series.
Hopefully very soon. Did you know that Cliff Floyd is the only MLB player to play for both the Rays and the Montreal Expos?
I did not know that.
Not the only, but one of the only. There's only been a few, and he's the most notable one that played for both. I looked that up a couple of years ago when we were in the midst of the Montreal discussions. I thought that was funny. He's one of the most known guys. When you think back to what started off kind of the Rays becoming legitimate, and that 2008 season was such a surprise, and I think that because of all of the really tough seasons that happened before then, the joy that was felt, and I was not a huge Rays fan at that time, but going back and watching those games, just watch the fans, watch the crowd. If you go back and watch some of those games, the joy that they had in watching that team play, watching that team win, it's just so cool to see a team that went through so much adversity for so many of those guys to then have that kind of success out of nowhere like that. It's what makes baseball amazing, that can happen, that you can have a team that is just like down, like in the middle of the pack or down in the dregs, and then all of a sudden come up and be a World Series contender from what seemingly nowhere. It's one of the beauties of the game of baseball. It's one of the reasons why, I think it's super easy to get into baseball, because even if your team isn't even that good right now, all it takes is one or two right moves, and your team can be the team. It's all it takes. So it's just what makes baseball fun. Great game to point out, and just a great emblematic of what the Rays have been.
Yeah, and the Trop was sold out for that game.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I mean, shout out to the '08 Rays, special team, special season. Shout out Joe Madden. You've got a few more appearances on this on this list that I'm sure we'll get to, but now we'll throw it over to you.
Yep, and we'll actually get to another one right now, and that's we're talking about some of the not this is kind of a middle moment of the Rays, and it's and the reason why I think it's so cool is because it's something that you just don't see very often. It's a game 163 win number 1195 against the Texas Rangers, who were another really good team that year with some really fun names on it. Like that game was a tough win, and there was some great like Adrian Beltre of the Hall of Fame, Elvis Andrus, Ian Kinsler, Nelson Cruz, who was batting in like the 6 hole, which is crazy. Martin Perez was pitched. Like there was some really good players on that team. Not the same Martin Perez that's crazy. There's been 2 Martin Perez's that have been pitching for the Texas Rangers. That's crazy. Anyway,
it's confusing.
That is confusing. But a thing that doesn't even really happen anymore. I don't remember when the last game 163 was in baseball since then.
I think they got rid of it after the 2020 season. I think it was when they redid the playoff format.
I think that's when they got rid of it. Yeah. So it'll never happen again, which is nuts. Something that isn't going to happen again. And again, another electric atmosphere in that. It was not in the Trop. It was on the road. That game was. So it was in the Rangers ballpark in Arlington. 42,000 people in attendance. That's tough to be 42,000 people out there to watch your team hopefully get to the postseason and not be able to get there. That's a tough one. But just another really fun Rays team. Lots of really fun names on there. Delman Young was out there. Will Myers, who we mentioned earlier, was out there. Sam Fold was out there.
The greatest to ever do it.
The greatest to ever do it. Desmond Jennings, as I said. Kevin Kiermaier was there. Jose Molina, our favorite catcher, was there. David Price started that game. And by the way, not only did he start that game, he was all the Rays needed that game. Like, you don't see that anymore. You really don't see that anymore. 9 innings pitched, only 7 hits allowed, only 2 runs allowed, only struck out 4 guys, but it didn't matter. On 118 pitches, he went out there and got the win. That's something else. Like, I don't know how many times you're going to see one guy go out there into a playoff type atmosphere game and go 9 innings. I just don't think you're going to see that very much anymore. So it's really cool to really cool to see that. And just another game in a franchise that has had some really, really fun end of season games.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the Rays ran the gauntlet that year because they then had to do the wild card game against the Cleveland. And then they had to go face the Red Sox. So they had to run a gauntlet just to get to the DS. And that was a super fun season. And yeah, I think it was Alex Cobb, I think, did a really good start against Cleveland straight after that in the wildcard game.
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. David Price, I mean, what a guy he was for us. One of our 2 Cy Young Award winners. And he gets a bit of shtick for being a bit bad in the playoffs. Like, he had a reputation for not being good in the playoffs. But even though this technically wasn't a playoff game, for some reason, game 163 is counted as regular season games. That was a do or die game. That was a playoff game.
It was. That was a playoff game.
He went out, complete game, shut him down.
Crushed it.
Yeah, like David Price, throw some respect on the name. I mean, I think he does have quite a bit of respect on the name, but I digress.
Always needs more.
Always need more. I hope you're doing well, David, wherever you are. All right. Should I talk about it? I should probably talk about it.
You should probably talk about it.
Win number 1013. Game 162, 2011. Oh boy, where to start with this one? I was like, I've got to save this one till near the end, I think. Oh boy, game 162, 2011. I mean, what hasn't already been said about this game? This is probably, if we were ranking them, the greatest day in race history. Like, it's
pretty high up there.
A legendary day in the Rays franchise and a legendary day for baseball in general. Maybe the greatest finish to a regular season of all time. The context was that the Rays started September 9 games out of the Boston Red Sox to chase a lone. Back then, they only had one wild card, the lone wild card spot. The Red Sox had recently spent a load of money acquiring Carl Crawford from the Rays. The Rays were expected to be in a rebuild, and they started off super slow. They actually started the season 0-6, and they slowly started to make their way back. The Red Sox had a historically bad September, and it came down to the last game of the season, and they were tied in the wild card standings. This Yankees team had sewn up the division already, and they were just playing for kicks, but they were a very good Yankees team. And the Rays needed a win, while the Red Sox needed a win over against the worst team in the league at the time, the Baltimore Orioles. And I remember I stayed up on a school night to watch this game. And I'm in the UK, so the game started at midnight.
Oof.
And I was. So I stayed up with my dad, who's a Red Sox fan, to watch this game. And he on the TV stuck on the Red Sox Orioles game. I loaded up MLB TV on my laptop and stuck on the Rays Yankees game, and we were trying to watch them simultaneously. And it all went wrong. David Price, I did say he comes up big sometimes. Today was not one of those days. He got absolutely shelled, particularly by Mark Teixeira, who hit a grand slam in the second inning to make it 5-0, and then in the fourth inning homered again to make it 6-0. Andrew Jones hit a home run in the fifth inning, and it was 7-0 Yankees by the fifth. And I remember there was a Red Sox analyst it was a pretty close game between the Red Sox and the Orioles, and there was a rain delay, and during the rain delay he said, well, it's safe to assume the Red Sox season does not end today. No matter what happens in this Red Sox-Orioles game, even if the Orioles come back and win it, we know the Rays are never going to win down 7-0 in the fifth.
Famous last words.
Why do you open his big mouth? Open his big mouth? So, what happened then? Let me tell you, okay? So, Sam Fuld drew a bases-loaded walk. Johnny Damon scored. Was 7-1. This is in the 8th inning, by the way.
Yeah.
Then, very next up, Sean Rodriguez, S-Rod, got hit by a pitch. Ben Zobrist scored, 7-2. Then, BJ Upton hit a sacrifice fly. Casey Kochman scored. It was 7-3. BA said, you know what? I'm feeling an Evan Longoria home run right now. I just feel it in my bones. And what do you know? Dwayne Stats would go, there it is! Long drive! Deep left field! It's gone! And it was 7-6 Rays. But we only had an inning to go. And in fact, the first two hitters in the ninth were retired in short order. Sam Fuld was due up to be the last guy, a guy that had come up big time and time again for the Rays all throughout that 2011 season. But Joe Madden said, no. This is not the time for Sam Fuld. Bring in the guy who's hitting 107 with one home run this year. Dan Johnson. Bring me Dan Johnson. Dan Johnson steps up to the plate. He immediately goes down 0-2. And the Rays are a strike away from seeing potentially their season slip away. He works the AB, fouls off a couple of tough pitches, works it to 2-2. And then he hooks a ball down the right field line. It hits off the foul pole, and the guy that bats 107 hits a game-tying home run with 2 strikes, 2 outs in the ninth inning to make it 7-7. Meanwhile, the Red Sox and Orioles are trading it back and forth. Jonathan Papelbon's trying to close it out, and the Orioles rally with a pair of runs in the bottom of the ninth to score a walk-off win against the Red Sox. Carl Crawford failing to make the catch in the ninth that could have kept the game alive. And then we flash over, as soon as the score is reflected in Tropicana Field, Evan Longoria hits his second home run to what was Crawford's corner, now known as the Game 162 landing. His second home run of the day, 8-7 Rays. The Rays win. The Rays, after being 9 games back with a month to go to the playoffs and secure the wild card win. Wow.
What a game.
Legendary. Do you know how insane if you just I just told the story, but let me just say some things again that happened.
Yeah.
The Rays put up 7 runs in 2 innings. The guy that hit the game-tying home run was batting 107 off the foul pole. Evan Longoria hit a home run that would only have been a home run in that exact spot. Otherwise, anywhere else, it would have just hit off the bottom of the wall. The Yankees were the best team in the league, and the Rays beat them. The Orioles were the worst team in the league, and they beat the Red Sox. Like, all of these things aligned, plus the historic meltdown in the month building up to it. It's just like, this will never happen again. And I can't illustrate how mental.
What more can you say?
It was 5 a.m. when the game finished, and then I had to go to school. And I couldn't explain why I was tired, because everyone in the UK doesn't follow baseball.
But I mean, I'm sure it was worth it every single minute. This is one of those games where I wish that I had been following the team like actively when this game happened, because I was not a huge baseball fan when I was younger growing up, and so I missed out on this. But I mean, I have gone back and watched this game many times. It is truly electric what happened in that game. I mean, I don't think if you were gonna say, let's make a movie and we're gonna make the climax, and you slid what happened in this game across the disc of an executive, they would say that's too ridiculous. You gotta make it a little bit more realistic here. Like, we gotta do something else. But it really happened. It really was that fantastic. It really did happen. One of the greatest baseball games ever played, in my opinion, because of all the stakes and all the everything that was on that game. Truly an all-timer.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I'm just not over it. I remember doing laps around my sofa at 5 a.m. and my dad's just pure heartbreak, and I was like, hey.
That's tough. Yeah.
You know what? David Price was bad, but shout out to the rest of the bullpen that were absolutely nails. Okay, because Jose De La Cruz gave up an extra run. He gave up the Andrew Jones home run, but Cesar Ramos, who's this? Some D De La Rosa. That is De La Rosa. D De La Rosa. Dane De La Rosa. He pitched an inning. And then Joel Peralta, Kyle Farnsworth, Brandon Gomes, and Jake McGee all pitched scoreless outings in that game as well. And they were nails. They were nails for the rest of the game. So 12-inning victory, 8-7. I mean, how can you possibly follow that up?
Yeah, I don't know. But before I do follow that up, I got something I need to tell all of you out there. If you have got a wardrobe right now that has been performing a little bit like David Price at the beginning of that game, not really doing what you needed to do, and you need some lockdown pieces in your wardrobe that you know you can call on whenever you need, and they're going to be locked down, I have the place for you. It is shop.rblrsports.com. You already know by now. 10% off everything, promo code FLAPPY. The best stuff for all the teams in the Bay is at RBLR. Shop.rblrsports.com, promo code FLAPPY. Get 10% of everything there. Get the bullpen pieces in your clothing lineup that you need for 10% off, promo code FLAPPY. Shop.rblrsports.com.
Yeah, your X drip will go up massively.
X drip. We're keeping that. So, in order to go beyond in order to try to follow that up, it's a tough one. I don't know that it can be followed up, but in the way that I will attempt to do that is to go not to another regular season game, but to go to the postseason win, number 21. And this is another game that had a lot of story to it, because before this game happened, this was in the shortened 2020 season. And before this game on September 1st was another game that the Rays lost 5-3 to the New York Yankees. And the game that I'm of course referring to is Game 5 of the ADLS against the Yankees. But to set the stage properly for that, you got to go back to September 1st and a game that the Rays once again lost 5-3. And the reason why that game is notable is because of a particular matchup between Mike Brasso and Aroldis Chapman. Aroldis Chapman is of course known as, a bad person, but also as a fireballing, relief pitcher. And he got into it with the Rays that day, and he got into it specifically with Mike Brasso, throwing above and behind his head. And which, to add more insult to injury, he got the last laugh in that situation by striking him out that day. which just set the stage for this game. The Yankees and the Rays have been going back and forth all season, as they tend to do. It's really where I think in 2020 is really where this rivalry, which had always been kind of brewing, really kind of kicked into high gear, and it's just been continuing ever since then. The genuine, I think, hatred between these two teams has started to come into play, and then we get to the postseason, where you can really get all the bragging rights. ALDS Game 5, the ultimate game of that series. The Yankees led it off with Garrett Cole, who only gave up one run on an Austin Meadows home run. The Rays countered with Tyler Glasnow, who also only gave up one run on a blast by Aaron Judge. It's a 1-1 game going into the 8th inning. And who should step out from the Yankees dugout to pitch that inning but Aroldis Chapman? And who should Kevin Cash decide to sub out G-Man Choi, who had been really productive for the Rays that season, to shift him out for none other than Mike Brasso, to then have one of the most legendary at-bats, maybe around, in Rays history, where you've got two guys that clearly do not like each other, just going at it. Like, blow for blow. He's fouling off pitches. Aroldis Chapman's giving him everything he can got. And then finally, he throws one pitch that Brasso could get a hold of, send it out over the left field wall, an electric call, a phenomenal moment. The Rays take the lead. And then after that, we go to the 9th. He was a shutdown performance from Diego Castillo, who is another cool Rays name that we haven't mentioned recently. Diego Castillo comes in, shuts it down. Rays win. Rays take the series, and the Rays move on, eventually going to the World Series that year. I love storylines. I love watching season-long storylines. And what better end to a storyline could you get than a playoff series deciding at bat that ends up winning a game? One of my favorite games of all time. I was glued to my seat for every pitch of that at bat. Truly a great moment in Rays history.
Yeah, that was a total nail biter of a game the whole time.
Yes.
We were on edge the whole time. Who was going to make the mistake? Who was going to be the first to crack? Because both the Yankees and Rays pitching staffs were nails that day. Yes. And it was like, you felt like the only way that was going to happen was a home run somewhere, because nobody was going to give up a rally. Everyone was locked in. Mm-hmm. And Brasso, maybe my favorite at-bat in Rays history. It's insanely good how well he stuck in there against one of the toughest at-bats to face in the current game in Aroldis Chapman. And what a perfect way for the good guys to pick up a win. And I don't care if you're a Yankees fan. It is what it is. It was the good guys winning. And yes. So proud of Mike Brasso, and he's still kicking about. He's still doing stuff.
He's around there.
I'd build a statue. I would build a statue of
1,000,000%.
of that moment. I mean, the 2020 playoffs was a whole excellent vibe until it wasn't. But it was just good vibes the whole way through.
It was good vibes.
So I've got one more game that I'm going to put in there. It's probably nowhere near game 162, but it's how do you beat a 7-run comeback to win? How about the biggest Rays comeback in history, win number 1079, where the Rays were down 8-0 going into the 5th inning, and they came back and won. They won the game 10-8. It's the biggest comeback in Rays history, the largest lead they've ever overcame. And in that was a 10-8 win over the Angels. They went to 66-54 after doing that. And again, we got the rally went. Sam Fuld started it off. He got a single. And then Desmond Jennings got a base-loaded walk. Then Ben Zobrist got a 3-run double. Evan Longoria hit a 2-run home run. And then in the next inning, Jose Lobaton, the ice cream man, hit a sac fly that got Ryan Roberts. Do you remember Tap Man? Ryan Roberts?
Ryan Roberts. That's a name I've not heard in a long time.
Tap Man himself. He scored off the Lobaton's sac fly, and then Pena hit a 2-run home run in the 8th to take the lead, and they never looked back. Alex Cobb was atrocious. He gave up all 8 runs in 2 2/3 innings. 8 runs allowed, 12 hits, just 1 strikeout. But then the bullpen locked it down. Yeah. No earned runs from the bullpen. Burke Badenhop, Rays legend, did it again. And then J.P. Howell, Kyle Farnsworth, Jake McGee, Joel Peralta, and Fernando Rodney all locked it down. And yeah, I just think we got to give a shout out to perhaps the best comeback in terms of runs deficit overcame in race history. A quick one, because we've got one more climactic game that we need to cover.
We do have one more game, and it is one of the most exciting games maybe in Rays history. It's so exciting that Pam is on my lap. She wants to talk about it too, because it is just that exciting of a game. It is a World Series game. It is Game 4 of the 2020 World Series, a game that was back and forth all the way through. The Dodgers staked out to a 2-0 lead early in the game through the third inning. Rays struck back for a run in the fourth. Dodgers got one back in the fifth, but then the Rays got one back in the bottom. Dodgers got another one in the sixth. Rays get 3 in the bottom of the sixth. Dodgers get 2 more in the seventh. Rays get 1. I mean, it was just back and forth all the way long until you get to the ninth inning, where the Dodgers were up 7-6. And I mean, it looked like the Rays season might be coming to a close, or might at least be coming to. They couldn't have got eliminated from that game, but it wasn't looking good. And in comes from the Dodgers their closer, the guy they would want to, like, theoretically be in that moment, Kenley Jansen. And the Rays just wouldn't go away. They just kept fighting. They kept getting guys on base. They would not give up. And it came down to maybe the ultimate Ray, the ultimate expression of what the Rays are, and what they always seem to be, is a guy who you would never remember his name if you weren't a Rays fan, or if this moment didn't happen. Another in the great line of Dan Johnson, guys like him who are remembered for a phenomenal moment. Brett Phillips, a guy who was batting south of the Mendoza line on the season, was basically there for his defense and his base running, gets up in the at-bat of his life, pokes one out there into the outfield. Complete madness ensues with, I believe it was who was it that dropped that ball out there? I believe it was Chris Taylor mishandled a ball out there in the outfield, airmails it home. Randy is like stumbling, bumbling, running as fast as he can, trying to get home to secure the win, and he trips, but the ball airmails. I mean, I'm doing it a disservice. Just go listen to the call. There's 2 great calls out there. I mean, go listen to them. It was one of the most fun moments I've ever been a part of. I was screaming at the top of my lungs in my dorm room, watching it live. I think I annoyed every single person in my dorm that night. I literally was screaming at the top of my lungs, running up and down my dorm hallways. I mean, it was one of the most exciting moments. I think it's probably the most exciting moment for me as a Rays fan that I have experienced. I mean, it was pure electricity. I don't know if we'll ever get a moment like that again. I hope we do very soon. But to me, for me right now, that I've experienced as a fan since I've been actively watching the team, the coolest game I've ever watched, the funnest game I've ever watched, the most electric game I've ever watched. So much fun.
Yeah, I mean, what's crazy is how awesome the game was building up to that play, because the play was so legendary that the rest of the game gets forgotten a bit, but that whole game from start to finish is crazy back and forth, like you said. Yep. But that Brett Phillips play, oh my gosh. There's not much these days that gets a Santa Maria out of Matt Vasgersian. But his call on the international radio call, he gives it a Santa Maria. And I can only think of 2 images. And these 2 images, I think, are enshrined forever in Rays history. If we were going to make a mural of the history of the Rays. One of them will be Brett Phillips doing the aeroplane around the outfield, not able to breathe because he was just so caught up in the moment. And Randy Rosarena, after running back to third base and then quickly falling over and then getting back to home plate after the 4th error of that play, tapping home base, going, "What the heck just happened?" With
helmet off,
in his eyes. Legendary moment. And I don't know how the Dodgers messed it up so bad, but I'm so glad they did. And if baseball was a real sport that made sense, that would have been the Rays would have won the World Series off the momentum generated from that moment. If
you would have thought
was a thing that made sense and narratives followed their logical conclusion. But the Rays would then go on to lose a couple of games. But at that point, I was like, we're going to win the World Series. We're the team destiny. We're the team of destiny. Like
That's
that
what I
doesn't
thought
happen.
too.
That doesn't happen to a team that doesn't win the World Series. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we'll just listen. We got another World Series running us, and there'll be something crazy that happens in that, and then we'll be like, that was the moment when we knew we were the team of destiny. It could even be in like 6 months' time.
Yeah. I hope it is. Well, that was 10 games. That took a lot longer than I think we thought it was going to, but we just had a lot to say because look, this has been a very fun baseball team to follow up until this point in its history. It's going to continue to be a very fun team to follow. And as we look into that real quick, give me one player that you're excited about through so far in spring training that you're looking forward to watching, seeing what they might be able to do going forward through spring training.
Do you know who's a player that's really like jumped out to me? And I don't think he'll be on the Major League roster, at least to start the year. Maybe not this year at all. But Ruben Cardenas, he's been smashing the ball down in the Grapefruit League. He's been absolutely killing it. So if he manages to get himself a look in somewhere, I'd be thrilled for him. He's doing really, really well out there. I think he leads the team in total bases. He's got a OPS of 1.333 in a very small sample size. Yeah. But Ruben Cardenas is a guy that does appear on some top prospect lists for the Rays. So keep an eye on that name. I don't know if he's going to make the team, but just keep an eye on him down in the minor leagues. What about you?
Colby White is the one that I'm really looking at. We're starting to see him fully come off of his injury now and starting to build back up as a reliever. I'm really excited to see what he has in him. I don't know if he'll make the team out of spring training. I kind of don't think so. I think he'll probably get some more time down in the minors, but I do wonder if he might be the first man up after we get into the season. I'm really excited to see as he continues to build up. The stuff looks great. Don't worry about box scores. Don't worry about any kind of scores really in spring training. This is a little PSA. If you're worried about the score of the game or the box score, you're watching spring training baseball wrong. Those things do not matter. What you need to look for is how long are pitchers going for? Are they getting their reps from pitching perspective and innings perspective? Are guys getting their swings? Are they putting good swings on baseballs? And looking at things like the stuff of pitchers, which you can see through, like, as you see some advanced statistics in like Savant after games. There's some of the games that they're in ballparks where they get Savant statistics. Go look at some of that stuff to see if you can see guys' stuff starting to progress the way you want it to. That's what we're looking for. Colby White his stuff is progressing in a good way. The velocity still needs to get there, but he's kind of doing the things you want to see him do. So I'm excited to see what he could potentially be doing coming into the season.
I love that pick. Only other one thing, the only real news out of camp is that Yu Chang has been injured, which narrows down the middle infield battle a bit. It sucks for Yu Chang because he hit a home run the other day. And he was going to be in the mix. He probably was a long shot to make the opening day roster, but he was in the mix to get a middle infield spot. Yeah. And he's probably going to get cut from camp now, which sucks.
Yeah, does suck.
So Yu Chang, thank you for the couple of games you played with us in spring. Hopefully we'll see you sometime down the road. And,
hopefully so.
We've now narrowed down the middle infield. The first elimination has happened.
Yeah, and I mean, Jonathan Aranda is really, really playing well. We'll talk about this more next week as we get more games, but Jonathan Aranda is starting to make a really strong case for himself to get that spot coming out of spring training, and we'll have to see if he can continue it, but he's played really, really well. He's been impressive so far.
Yeah, he's been really, really good. And just a little fun tidbit, the most ABs given to a Rays player so far this spring, Austin Shenton, the corner infielder.
Go figure.
Yeah, so maybe the Rays see something in him. They want to get him as much look in as possible. Probably a long shot to make the roster, but if a corner infielder goes down, maybe he's more likely to be called up than Caminero, who they would want to keep there for a bit longer. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they kept him in the Rule 5 draft, so they obviously saw the value in a guy like that. We did not think that he was going to be still with the Rays. We both, I think, said we didn't think he was going to still be with the Rays through the Rule 5 draft. He's still here. And they obviously the Rays see some value there. So it'll be interesting to see how that value manifests itself. But yeah, that's another super interesting guy to watch throughout spring training.
So this is early in spring, very early. No point in looking too deep into any results. Definitely don't look into any results. No. But keep an eye on the processes. Keep an eye on, like you said, the stuff. Don't look at the record because it literally means nothing.
Nothing at all.
So just chill, just enjoy watching some baseball when you can see it on TV, or if you can get out to Port Charlotte, that'd be awesome. A spring training game looks like it's real good vibes. I've not been able to experience it before, but it looks like good vibes.
Good vibes. Speaking of good vibes, our show, good vibes. And that is our show for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us once again. Like and subscribe. It will be a huge favor to us if you do so, because we really appreciate your support. We're building some awesome stuff. We're building towards another great season of Rays baseball. So like, subscribe, share, get it out there to all your friends, because it's going to be a fun ride, and you want to be on this ride here at RBLR. That's our show, guys. Thank you, everyone, for joining us once again. I hope by the next time we see you, we'll know. So maybe we'll know a little bit more about some of these roster battles. But until then, raise up.
Raise up.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.